Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the X-Men, we do pick back up with Wolverine once again. But here's the thing, because we're going to cover two issues. Issue number 89 and also 90. Now, technically, both issues are one-shots, but I kind of realized that both issues are technically very short. So it kind of made sense to me to go ahead and take both issues and do one video for the both of them. Now, with that being said, when it comes to issue number 90, it is technically part of Legion Quest. And let me explain. So as we all know, when it comes to Legion Quest, it's the whole idea of Legion going back in time to try to kill off Magneto. And the reason why, because he believed if Magneto was not around Charles Xavier, Charles would be able to achieve his lifelong goal where mutants and humans are able to live together in harmony. The problem is that when it came to Legion, when he tried to kill off Magneto, he had killed off Charles Xavier instead. And so with the death of Charles Xavier, it had brought in a brand new timeline. And of course, that timeline is Age of Apocalypse. Now, when it came to that one single event, it also affected the other X books as well because, well, they were all connected to one another. Let me explain, because again, with the whole idea of the death of Charles Xavier and the death of the original timeline for the main Marvel Universe and a new timeline coming into existence, that also means the same thing for the rest of the X books as well. And so if you're reading Excalibur or Wolverine or even like Cable or, X-Force, you had your X-heroes going through different types of situations. But at the very end of those situations, you didn't have your heroes be frozen in time. And the reason why, because again, Legion Quest. But the thing was, the old timeline was going away and a new timeline was coming into the picture. And so for Wolverine, it was the same thing as well, where you had Wolverine fighting against Sabretooth. Now that fight takes place in the second chapter of this video. The first chapter is really more about Wolverine fighting against his old master. Now this is pretty huge because we have not officially talked about Wolverine's old master. And I kind of feel bad about this because when it came to our X-Men coverage, we had started with the Mutant Massacre and worked our way forward from that point right there. But the whole idea of Wolverine's master took place before that storyline right there. So we can kind of officially dive into the whole idea of who is Wolverine's master, Ogun. Now, before we dive into the origin of that character, I do want to say that this is Wolverine finally coming back home. And let me explain. Because back in Fatal Attractions, you had Magneto being able to rip off the adamantium off the bones of Wolverine. Now, with that happening, we had discovered that Wolverine had bone claws. But after that, you didn't have Wolverine just step away from the X-Men. And so for a good while there, he was away from the X-Men. But by this point, it's Wolverine finally coming back home. The problem is that on his way home, he is then confronted by Ghost Rider. Now, this Ghost Rider right here is actually Danny Ketch Ghost Rider because it's the 1990s and he was the Ghost Rider at that time. But either way, for Ghost Rider here, is him telling Logan like, hey, the reason why I came for you is because your old master is back again and he has spilled innocent blood. Now, by this point in our coverage over the X-Men, we have not learned everything about Ogun just yet. It will be later on when we do learn more about the actual character, but by this point we do know that for Wolverine, he had this mentor, Ogun. And when it came to Ogun, he was able to teach Wolverine how to manage the two sides in his mind, the human side and his animal side. And so with Ogun being able to teach Wolverine that, for Wolverine, he looked at Ogun more than a friend. He looked at Ogun as a father figure. And so you have the two characters being able to bond with one another. But then there was a day where you had Wolverine be very horrified by Ogun. And here's the reason why. Because Ogun had found a way to cheat death. And that right there is really important because it was the whole idea that Ogun began to use dark magic as a way to cheat death. You see, what he did was he had created this psychic form of himself that would allow him to place that form in someone's body. And once he did, over time, that other form would be able to take over that person's body. So just in case his other body had died off, he'll be okay because the other form was out there in someone else's body, slowly replacing them. Now that was the early days when it came to Ogun, but he did try his best to use this technique on Wolverine. But the thing was, Wolverine was able to push Ogun out of his body. And so once he did that, for Logan, for a good while there, he kind of believed that Ogun was dead until a miniseries that came out in the 1980s, all about Wolverine and Kitty Pryde. Because in that storyline, you had Ogun return when you had Wolverine trying his best to train Kitty Pryde. And the thing was, it was Ogun trying his best to take over the body of Kitty Pryde by using the same technique he tried on Wolverine. Now, at first, it did seem like he was able to take over the body of Kitty Pryde, but you then had Kitty Pryde being able to push Ogun out of her body. And the only reason why, because Logan had trained her, which honestly is a great thing. Now, when it came to Ogun in that storyline, he still tried his best to kill off Kitty Pryde, but you had Wolverine being able to, well, kill off Ogun. And so we were left to believe that Ogun was officially dead in that storyline. But also you had Wolverine go out of his way to break the mask that Ogun always wore, this demon mask. And the demon mask does play a very important role in the first chapter of this video. Because when you do have Wolverine and also Ghost Rider arrive at the museum, they find a bunch of dead bodies all over the place. Now for Wolverine, that's the first red flag right there. Why in the world the alarm has not gone off yet with the whole idea of all these different dead bodies? Now, for Wolverine and Ghost Rider, when they walk into the place, they find Ogun's mask and also his sword as well. Now, the mask, again, is very important because the last time Wolverine saw it, he broke the mask. But apparently, it's here again right now in front of him. Now for our two heroes, they do hear a sound coming from a different part of the museum. So you do have our heroes go check it out, except when they get there, they don't find anything. But then they hear another noise. And of course that noise came from the first place they were at. And so when they go back over there, they kind of find out that Ogun's mask is now gone. And so is his sword as well. And so this kind of leads into the whole idea of the spirit of Ogun being able to possess the armor suit inside the museum as a way to attack Wolverine. Now, this is Ogun once again trying his best to possess the body of Wolverine for his own. And really, he's kind of hoping that Wolverine will go into this berserker mode, which would then allow Ogun to easily take over the mind and body of Wolverine. But the thing is, for Logan, he begins to have a flashback. And with the flashback, it's more the idea of when you had Ogun teach Wolverine to find that perfect balance between his animal side and his human side. And so once you have Wolverine think back to that moment, you didn't have Wolverine being able to not fall for Ogun's trick to go into his berserker mode. And so you have Wolverine being able to use the sword of Ogun to once again break the mask. And when he does, the spirit of Ogun goes away. And so just like that, we literally wrapped up the whole Ogun story in this video. But now we have to move over to the Sabertooth storyline. Because around this time in Marvel Comics, when it came to Charles Xavier, he kind of believed in the idea that he could cure the mind of Sabretooth, turning him into a good guy. Now, honestly, that was a pretty wild idea for Charles Xavier at that time, but Charles truly believed that he had the ability to, pull this off. And so for Sabretooth, while in his prison cell, you have Gambit walk up to the cell to tell Sabretooth, like, hey, your old friend is coming home very soon, leading into issue number 90, which is Wolverine versus Sabretooth. And so as we dive into issue number 90, it's really more of us picking up with Wolverine finally coming back home to the mansion. Now, when he does arrive back home to the mansion, the first person he goes to see is, well, Sabretooth. Now, for Sabretooth, his main goal is to trick Wolverine into fighting. And so you have Sabretooth trying his best to charge at Wolverine. But again, Sabretooth is inside a cell. And so when he tries to escape his cell, and try to attack Wolverine, the cell defenses go up and prevents him from being able to escape. And so for Wolverine, it's kind of like, listen, I know what you're trying to do here. You're trying to push me into that point where I want to fight you and possibly kill you for what you did to Silver Fox a while ago. But the thing is, being with the X-Men, it made me a better person. So no, I'm going to walk away, but I'm still hoping that maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for me to go ahead and fight you and kill you off for what you did to her. And so for Wolverine, his main goal now is to have a quiet night. And so you have Wolverine just go back upstairs. Now, while upstairs, he begins to watch a news report about a guy known as Dorfman. Now, we had actually talked about this character a long time ago when it came to our coverage over Wolverine. You see, Dorfman was the guy who was working at the zoo, who was going out of his way to torture different animals at the zoo. And you had Wolverine being able to stop him. Well, apparently he had kidnapped somebody and trying to keep that person inside his apartment. And so the police had to run in there and pull the man out. Now, while trying to do that, one of their own got killed by Dorfman. But the thing is, while you have Logan watching the news, you have this therapist say that when it comes to some people, what they try to do is they continue to hurt themselves over and over again to kind of get used to the pain. And so for Wolverine, he kind of realized what Sabretooth was trying to do earlier. Get used to the pain so that he will be able to push himself through the security to hopefully escape and then attack Wolverine. And Wolverine called it perfectly, because for Sabretooth, it's him once again trying to escape from his cell. And this time he is used to the pain the security system puts on him when he tries to escape. And so with him now being used to it, you now have him being able to escape very easily. Now, when he does, Wolverine was right there waiting for him, saying, hey, listen, you have two options. We can fight, or you can go ahead and go back into your cell. Now for Logan, the whole idea of this battle is really more of him saying like, listen, I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to go ahead and put you inside a cell. But for Sabretooth, he wants to go ahead and kill off Wolverine, but at the same time, he wants to bring out that animal side of Wolverine. And so you do have the two characters begin to battle against one another. But as the battle goes on, it does get to that point where you have Wolverine about to kill off Sabretooth. You have Wolverine put his hand underneath the chin of Sabretooth. The first two claws he pops out go to the side of Wolverine's face. But the middle one, it does pop out and it goes to the skull of Sabretooth. So we're kind of left to believe in the possibility that Wolverine had just killed off Sabretooth. But like I said earlier, when it came to all these different X books at this time, they were all being affected by Legion Quest. And so for Wolverine and Sabretooth, they were turned into crystal, frozen in time. And the reason why, because the old timeline is going away and a brand new timeline is coming into the picture. And this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.